Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good evening to all of you. Okay, so let's start today's lesson. We are on the page number 93. Number 19. So, trick number 19. How to enthrall them with your choice of topic. Them. Okay, several years ago, a girlfriend and I attended a party saturated with a hodgepodge of swelligant folks. Swelligant. Okay, what is swelligant? Just let us see first. Okay. Okay, it's not written, no problem. Fox. Everyone we talked to seemed to lead a nifty life. Discussing the party afterward, I asked my friend, Diana, of all the exciting people at the party, who did you enjoy talking to most? Without hesitation, she said, oh, by far, Dan Smith. What does Dan do? I asked her. Well, I'm not sure, she answered. Where does he live? I don't know, Diana responded. Well, what is he interested in? Well, we really didn't talk about his interests. Then I asked, what did you talk about? Well, I guess we talked mostly about me. I thought Diana has just rubbed noses with a winner. Okay, so as it turns out, I had the pleasure of meeting big winner Dan several months later. Diana's ignorance about his life piqued my curiosity, so I grilled him for details. So my picked. What is picked? This is pick. ठेस पहुंचाना, गुस्से में लाना.
Peak.
So piqued my curiosity, so I grilled him for details. As it turns out, Dan lives in Paris, has a beach home in the south of France, and a mountain home in the Alps. He travels around the world producing sound and light shows for pyramids and ancient ruins. And he is an avid hang glider and scuba diver. Okay, so does this man have an interesting life or what? Yet Dan, when meeting Diana, said nothing about himself. I told Dan about how pleased Diana was to meet him, yet how little she learned about his life. Dan simply replied, well, when I meet someone, I learn so much more if I asked about their life. I always try to turn the spotlight on the other person. Truly confident people often do this. They know they grow more by listening than talking. Obviously, they also captivate the talker. Okay, so sell yourself with a top sales technique. Several months ago, at a speaker's conversation, I was talking with a colleague, Brian Tracy. Brian does a brilliant job of training top salespeople. He tells his student of a giant spotlight that when shining on their product is not as interesting to the prospects. When they shine the spotlight on the prospects, they make the sale. Salespeople, this technique is especially crucial for you. Keep your swiveling spotlight aimed away from you, only lightly on your product and most brightly on your buyer. Okay, so you will do a much better job of selling yourself and your product. यानी आपको उसके बारे में बात करना है अपने प्रोडक्ट के बारे में बात करने से ज़्यादा. टेक्निक नंबर 19, द स्विवलिंग स्पॉटलाइट. स्विवलिंग. फिरकी घुमाना. ठीक है.
Swivel.
यानी घुमा हुआ स्पॉटलाइट. ठीक है. When you meet someone, imagine a giant revolving spotlight between you, right? When you are talking, the spotlight is on you. When the new person is speaking, it's shining on him or her. If you shine it brightly enough, the stranger will be blinded to the fact that you have hardly said a word about yourself. The longer you keep it shining away from you, the more interesting he or she finds you. Okay. Okay, number 20. How to never need to wonder what do I say next. Moments arise, of course, when even conversationalists extraordinaire hit the wall. Some folks, monosyllabic grunts leave slim pickings even for masters of the be a word detective technique. Okay, if you find yourself futilely, what is this? Futilely, yes, futilely. In a futile and unproductive manner. یعنی بیکار, بالکل ایک دم ایسے بیکار طریقے سے. If you find yourself futilely fanning the embers of a dying conversation, and if you feel for political reasons or human compassion that the conversation should continue, here is a foolproof trick to get the fire blazing again. I call it parroting. After that beautiful tropical bird that captures everyone's heart simply by repeating other people's words. Have you ever puttering around the house had the TV in the background turned to a tennis game? You hear the ball going back and forth over the net. Clink, clunk, clink, clunk, clink. This time you don't hear the clunk. The ball didn't hit the court. What happened? You immediately look up at the set. Okay? So likewise in conversation, the conversational ball goes back and forth. First you speak, then your partner to speak, you speak, and so it goes back and forth. Each time through a series of nods and comforting grunts like you let your conversation partner know the ball has landed in your coat. It's your "I got it" signal. Such is the rhythm of conversation. Okay? So what do I say next? Back to that frightfully familiar moment when it is your turn to speak but your mind goes blank. Don't panic. Instead of signaling verbally or non-verbally that you got it, simply repeat or parrot the last 2 or 3 words your companion said in a sympathetic, questioning tone. That throws the conversational ball right back in your partner's court. My friend Phil sometimes picks me up at the airport. Usually I am exhausted that I rudely fall asleep in the passenger seat, relegating Phil to nothing more than a chauffeur. Driver. Chauffeur. That is actually chauffeur, right? Chauffeur. After one especially exhausting trip some years ago, I flung my bags in his trunk and flopped onto the front seat. As I was dozing off, he mentioned he had gone to the theater the night before. Usually I would have just grunted and wafted into the unconsciousness. However, on this particular trip, I had learned the parroting technique and was eager to try it. Theater? I parroted quizzically. Yes, it was a great show, he replied, fully expecting it to be the last word on the subject before I fell into my usual sleepy stupor. What is this? Stupor. Stupor. This is stupor. यानी नीम मधोशी, यानी बेहोशी की हालत में, मतलब नींद में चला जाऊं मैं. Sleepy stupor. Great show, I parroted, presently surprised by my interest. He said, yes, it's a new show by Stephen Sondheim called Sweeney Todd. Sweeney Todd? I again parroted. Now Phil was getting fired up. Yeah, great music and an unbelievably bizarre story. Bizarre story? I parroted. Well, that's all Phil needed. For the next half an hour, Phil told me the show's story about a London barber who went around murdering people. I half dozed, but soon decided his tale of Sweeney Todd's cutting off people's heads was disturbing my sleepy reverie. What is this? दिन में ख्वाब देखना. Reverie. ठीक है, ख्वाबी पुलाव को, मेरे सोते हुए ख्वाब को जो है वो डिस्टर्ब कर रहा था. So I simply backed up and parroted one of his previous phrases to get him on another track. You said it had great music? That did the trick. For the rest of the 45-minute trip to my home, Phil sang me Pretty Woman, The Best Pies in London, and other songs from Sweeney Todd. Much better accompaniment for my demi nap. I'm sure to this day Phil thinks of that trip as one of the best conversations we ever had, and all I did was parrot a few of his phrases. Technique number 20, parroting. Never be left speechless again. Like a parrot, simply repeat the last few words your conversation partner says. That puts the ball right back in his or her court, and then all you need to do is listen. Salespeople, why go on a wild goose chase for a customer's real objections when it is so easy to shake them out of the trees with parroting? Parroting your way to profits. Parroting is also a can opener to pry open people's real feelings. Star salespeople use it to get to their prospects, यानी उम्मीदवार जो मुतवक्के जो खरीदार है, prospects emotional objection which they often don't even articulate to themselves. A friend of mine, Paul, a used car salesman, told me he credits a recent sales of Lamborghini to parroting. Paul was walking around the lot with a prospect and his wife who had expressed interest in a sensible car. He was showing them every sensible Chevy and Ford on the lot. As they were looking at one very sensible family car, Paul asked the husband what he thought of it. Well, he mused, I am not sure this car is right for me. Instead of moving on to the next sensible car, Paul parroted, right for you? Paul's questioning inflection signaled the prospect that he needed to say more. Well, yeah, the prospect mumbled. I'm not sure it fits my personality. Fits your personality? Paul again parroted. Maybe I need something a little more sporty. A little more sporty? Paul parroted. Well, those cars over there look a little more sporty. Paul's parrot had ferreted out which cars to show the customer. As they walked over toward a Lamborghini on the lot, Paul saw the prospect's eyes light up. An hour later, Paul had pocketed a fat commission. Okay, so want to take a rest from talking to save your throat? This next technique gets your conversation partner off and running, so all you have to do is listen, or even sneak off unnoticed as he or she chats congenially away. Okay, so how long is this? Okay, let it be. We'll do it tomorrow, inshallah. Okay, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to me patiently. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.